Hi, hello, it's Sugar. Welcome to my normal and heroic boss guide for the Lords of Dread. This is a one-phase encounter that revolves around each boss's 100 energy ability. Mal'Ganis will always use his first. 50 seconds after his ability finishes, Kintessa will use hers. These abilities never overlap, so the raid doesn't need to worry about dealing with both at the same time. Hero can be used on pull or at 3 minutes in heroic. To start, the tank should take the bosses to the side of the room and face them away from the group, while the raid is loosely spread to the side behind them. Slowly backpedal the bosses around the room as needed to avoid Slumber Clouds. These are medium-sized, solid purple circles that will put anyone who comes into contact with them to sleep. Slept players will be affected by Unsettling Dreams for 8 seconds. This can be dispelled by healers. Tanks should face both bosses away from the raid at all times due to their frontals. Mal'Ganis casts Leeching Claws, hitting the tank with physical damage and applying open veins. Tanks should swap on every cast of this for 2 reasons. 1, if the same target is hit twice with Leeching Claws, it will heal Mal'Ganis, and 2, open veins reduces healing received by 25% for 20 seconds and stacks. Kintessa's frontal attack is called Anguishing Strike. This hits anyone in front of her with physical damage and leaves an 18-second dot that deals shadow damage. This stacks with additional hits. Timing this around Leeching Claws leaves tanks with 2 stacks. The main mechanic of this fight that everyone needs to be aware of is Cloud of Carrion, a green circle that applies a dot to several players and grows in intensity as it stacks up. Ranged players should handle this dot and keep it out of melee. Around 5 stacks, it should be transferred to a new player. All that's needed to transfer the dot is to run into the debuffed player's green circle. Biting Wounds is applied to the previous carrier for 8 seconds. Should they get this again before this falls off, they will die. The only way to remove the dot is with the next mechanic, Fearful Trepidation. This puts a large purple circle on a player with them at the center of it. Players afflicted should spread slightly away from the raid and then hold still so anyone affected by Cloud of Carrion can stand on the outer edge of this purple circle. Cloud of Carrion players should not touch the player in the middle of the circle because Bursting Dread will fear anyone within 10 yards of them. Feared players can be dispelled by healers. 3 Carrion debuffs can fit on one circle if you maximize the space. When Fearful Trepidation expires, it will remove the Carrion debuff from anyone on the edge of the circle. These players will then spit out green clouds of insects that flee away from them. Everyone needs to watch their feet and not be hit by these. Anyone hit will get a new Cloud of Carrion debuff that would need to be removed in the next wave of Fearful Trepidations. Getting extra debuffs this way can lead to a wipe. Next up, we have Mal'Ganis casting Manifest Shadows. This spawns an Inchoate Shadow ad with 1 HP. It will begin casting Ravenous Hunger, dealing a burst of AoE damage to the raid and healing itself. Ignore the ad until it reaches full HP, then switch to it and interrupt all further casts of Ravenous Hunger while burning it down. If the ad is DPS before it's fully formed, it takes more casts to heal to full and deals extra damage to the raid. Healers should note that during these casts, some minor CDs may be needed to help keep players with the Carrion debuff alive. Alright, let's go over each boss's 100 energy ability. We'll start with Mal'Ganis. Unto Darkness will turn both bosses into insect swarms. This does heavy raid-wide AoE damage. Healers should prepare their healing CDs to rotate around this ability. Anyone who doesn't have a Carrion debuff should stack in melee for easier healing. This lasts for 20 seconds, and in this form, both bosses take 100% increased AoE damage, so Starfall and other AoE abilities are king here. After this ends, the raid should quickly spread back out because another set of Carrion debuffs will follow. In Heroic, after this ability finishes, Mal'Ganis will gain a stack of Decay Mastery, increasing damage done by 10% and making Cloud of Carrion tick faster. Kintessa uses Infiltration of Dread at 100 energy. This gives all players paranoia and turns them hostile to one another. 2 players' essences are also infiltrated by the dreadlords. The raid must determine which 2 players are dreadlords within 30 seconds. To do this, you must be close enough to a player to trigger a moment of clarity, allowing you to see the essence of the dreadlords floating atop their shoulders. It's honestly pretty hard to see. There are a few weak auras and chat spam bubbles out there to help, but calm, collected communication seems to work best in my opinion. Call only who you see, not who you don't see. The two players who are dreadlords will not be able to tell they are dreadlords and can confuse the raid by giving others names. Confirm with at least 5 players before DPSing them. Avoid using AoE spells during this phase since the healers can't heal hostile targets and the spell effects can make things even harder to see. If the raid fails to identify the dreadlords after 30 seconds, Shatter Mind is applied to the raid, stunning all players for 3 seconds and dealing damage every second until death. Basically, it's a wipe if you don't find them. In Heroic, after her ability is used, Kintessa will gain a stack of Shadow Mastery, increasing the size of the Slumber Clouds and her shadow damage done by 10%. And finally, the TLDR. Hero on pull or at 3 minutes in Heroic. Keep bosses faced away from the raid, position off to the sides, move bosses as needed away from solid purple sleep clouds. Tank swap bosses on every cast of Leeching Claws. Transfer green Cloud of Carrion at 5 stacks to another player. Stand on the edge of a player's giant purple Fear of Trepidation circle to remove instead of transferring. Ignore add until it's full HP, then nuke and interrupt it. At 100 energy, Mal'Ganis onto darkness equals swarms. Stack unless you have a green circle. AoE damage is 100% increased, aka use AoE spells, and a healing CD here. Kintessa's Infiltration of Dread. Find the 2 dreadlords among us. Must be close to other players to have a moment of clarity revealing them. Confirm before DPSing, you have 30 seconds to figure it out. In Heroic, after each 100 energy ability, the boss gains a damage increase. That's it for this guide. Check out my other videos for the rest of this raid here on my channel. Okay, bye!